Hi, I'm Dr. Walker. We're going to talk a little about intermittent fasting today. Hi again. Welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Walker. Today I'm going to talk a little about the major topic is intermittent fasting. But as a prelude to that, a little about me again. So over the years, I've done things like lots of treadmill, lots of running. I was in the military for 27 years. There's a lot of push-ups and sit-ups and those kinds of things. And so that's what I'm accustomed to. But as I get older, now I'm in my 50s, I realize I can't sort of do that, 3-mile run, 4-mile run, and 100 push-ups, in a minute. I can't do that anymore. And so I need to do things that I can sustain for myself long term. So things I can actually do when I'm still, 60 or 70 years old. I can still do some of these same things to keep myself healthy and fit. Now, my family run the risk of diabetes and hypertension and high cholesterol and those kinds of things. And so I'm trying to do whatever I can to offset a lot of those things myself by eating right and sort of working out a little bit still as best as I can. Now, what that means for me is a couple of things. One, I walk at least 10,000 steps per day, and that's weekday. And I try to get probably 15,000 steps in on the weekends. And so now it's almost 4 o'clock, and I have just over 17,000 steps. That's a Saturday, Sunday process for me. So 10,000 steps during the week, and a little bit more on the weekend, and that helps me a little bit in terms of sort of keeping my weight where I need to have it. The other thing I do is hydration. I drink a lot of water, at least a half a gallon of water per day, or so. And I do that throughout the day. And I'll probably have another video on that here in the next couple of days. And the next thing I do is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, exactly what is it? It allows you to eat, and you can choose whatever time you want, but for me, my first meal is about 12 noon. My last meal is around 8 o'clock at night, so I have 16 hours essentially of having no food to eat. What that does, it gives my pancreas a little relaxation time to say, okay, no more glucose being eaten by me, so the pancreas gets a chance to relax. It also gives my body a chance to utilize the glucose it has already in the system. So typically, you'll have enough sugar in your blood, and if not, you'll have stores in your skeletal muscles, in your liver, that your system can actually utilize if you've not had any food to eat for a while, and then eventually get to the fats that you have. But it gives my body a chance essentially to use the glucose already in the system, as opposed to me adding more stuff to my body that I don't necessarily need. In addition to that, or in addition to the intermittent fasting, and again, you can choose whatever time you want. Some people they eat for 2 hours and fast for 22 hours, or eat for 4 hours and fast for 20 hours, whatever time you want to do. But giving your body a chance to sort of utilize the glucose it already has internally, or in your liver and your skeletal muscles, helps you long term in that it does not tax your pancreas so much in terms of insulin production. That's the big piece of that. In addition to that, when I have my 8 hours of eating, I do also watch specifically what I eat. So foods high in lectin, for example, I try not to, and again, I almost never tell patients not to eat certain kinds of foods, not to eat certain kinds of things. What I do tell them is to sort of modify how much of the kinds of food, starchy foods, for example, that you're eating. So if you're going to have some rice or some pasta, those kinds of things, I would not have them 3 or 4 times a week. I'd probably have them once or twice a week. Once, ideally, or put them off for maybe once every other week or so. But things like rice, brown rice, white rice, whatever it is, I try not to have that more than once a week. White potatoes, flour, the enriched bleached flour, I try not to eat that too much. That's probably once a month for me. Things like tomatoes, even, I try not to have too much of that. Rice, pasta, I mentioned before. So I try not to have too much of that starchy, high carb meals in my 8-hour period. Again, that helps me significantly. And again, what you don't want to have is you don't want to have too much long-term glucose in your blood, taxing your pancreas chronically. And again, in 3 or 4 years, if that's what you've done, then great. But doing it for 30 and 40 years, it puts too much stress on your pancreas and doesn't get it a chance to sort of relax a little bit and not sort of overproduce any insulin. I do not, as well, I don't eat red meat for lots of reasons, and I don't eat chicken. Chicken, for example, is sort of my my nemesis, and it's just because of what I've learned long ago about chicken and how it's produced in this country. Chicken's actually just a mass-produced product, and how they do it is they use a lot of growth hormones, for example, in chicken. Now, growth hormones, if you don't know much about it, it stays in your blood for a very, very long time, and what it does is it increases your blood glucose levels long term, and then it forces your pancreas then to produce more insulin, try to drive that glucose into your cell. So long term high levels of glucose, then taxing your pancreas to produce more insulin to force that glucose into the cell, which is the same concept or the same issue with diabetics, right? Diabetes is just that you have high levels of glucose in your system chronically that your pancreas is trying to sort of offset by increasing the amount of insulin that it actually produces. So the problem is long-term taxing on your pancreas results in insulin resistance to some degree. So I don't eat chicken, and so people would say to me, well, why not just, what about the organic free-range chicken? And I'll show you a picture here in a second. Organic chicken in this country specifically means that the chicken have access to getting out to the environment in a 5-minute window in a 24-hour period, right? So imagine you have, on a farm, you have thousands of millions of chicken, you have a door available for them to escape, essentially, to get outside and that door is open for 5 minutes in the day, and if they were to get outside, that's technically, by definition, organic free-range chicken. So I try not to do that as well. And red meat, just a whole other conversation. We'll talk about that maybe in another term. But I try not to have any of those things. So anything that's sort of farm-raised, I don't do. I do eat a lot of fish, not farm-raised fish. Obviously, it's fresh caught or wild caught fish. I do eat a lot of that. But anyway, that's what I do. So for me, staying healthy long term, as I get into my 50s now and eventually into my 60s, I try to walk still, again, at least 10,000 steps per day. I drink lots of fluid, and then this intermittent fasting, which is sort of, I've done this in the last maybe 8 months or so, which actually helps to keep my weight sort of where I need to have it. So my weight technically, actually I'm within 6 pounds of my best weight in the last 30 years. Doing sort of this milieu of things that I'm doing. It keeps my blood pressure normal, keeps my cholesterol normal, keep my blood sugars normal. So I'm happy sort of with what I'm doing currently. So that's what this channel is all about. This channel is all about sort of staying healthy in as we get older, things that you can do, and not high level aggressive things. I'm not running, 5 miles a day and that sort of stuff. I don't. I can walk, at least 5 miles per day. I do that. But that's what I do. I can do that easily. I can walk, I can drink some fluids, and I can kind of watch what it is I eat. I can watch or reduce the high levels of lectin that I'm consuming in my body, again, to keep my weight at a normal level. And that's what I do. And if you'd like to hear some more about that in terms of what I do and how I keep fit and healthy long term and into my 50s, stay tuned, and hopefully the next video we'll talk about a little hydration. I'll talk about diabetes as well in another video. So if you're interested in any of those kinds of things, stay tuned and subscribe, and I'll talk with you later. Thanks, Dr. Walker.